Hello students. So today we are going to start with the chapter of what is democracy and why democracy. Why is it important to have a democratic philosophy or democratic policy? So what is democracy? Democracy is the most prevalent form of government in the world today, and it is expanding into more countries. Basically, it is the form of government where people are the ruler. People are the deciding authority. People elect the leaders to rule, to form the government. So what is democracy? Democracy is basically a structure in which people elect their own people by the process of voting, by the process of election. So you have already read about different forms of government. On the basis of your understanding of democracy so far, mentioning a few examples, write down some common features of democratic government and non-democratic government. So why define democracy? So this is a small activity being conducted. You can go through it. A simple definition, if we talk about a simple definition, and as I told you, democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. So one simple factor common to all democracies is that the government is chosen by the people. So this is a basic starting point, or the basic feature or prerequisite for a democratic country or democratic nation or democratic form of government. This definition allows us to separate democracy from other forms of government that are clearly not democratic. The army rulers of Myanmar were not elected by the people. Those who happened to be in control of the army became the rulers of the country. People had no say in this decision. Dictators like Pinochet, Chile are not elected by the people. This also applies to monarchies. The king of Saudi Arabia rule not because the people have chosen them, but they do so because they happen to be born in the royal family. So this is not democracy. So this simple definition is not adequate. It reminds us that democracy is people's rule. But if we use this definition in an unthinking manner, we would end up calling almost every government that holds an election a democracy. So simple definition is not important. Just where we can say that democracy is a form of a government where people elect their rulers, choose their rulers. But not all form of government where people elect their rulers are democratic. So we'll discuss it in more detail. That would be very misleading, as well as we shall find out in chapter 3. Every government in contemporary world wants to be called a democracy, even if it is not so. This is why we need to carefully distinguish between a government that is a democracy and one that pretends to be. So almost every country wants to be called themselves as a democratic country. So we can do so by understanding each word in this definition carefully and spelling out the features of a democratic government. So what are the basic features? Basic features is that it gives the every man the right to be his own oppressor. Democracy consists of choosing your dictators after so if we move ahead, what are the features of democracy? So democracy, we have stated that in simple form, democracy is the form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. This raises many questions. Who are the rulers in this definition? What kind of election? Who are the people? And what is the final form of government? So we'll discuss each and every point single-handedly. Who are the rulers in this definition? Which officials must be elected for any government to be called as democracy? Which decisions may be taken by non-elected officials on the democracy? So there are many questions in a democratic. If you ask whether a country or a form of government is democratic or not, the first question is who elects those people? Who are the rulers who are elected, and what is the form of election that takes place, and which officials must be elected for any government? What is the criteria for those election of governments? What kind of election constitutes a democratic election? What condition must be fulfilled for election to be considered as democratic? What are the policies to be framed for conducting a democratic election? Who are the people who elect the rulers? And should this include every citizen, or a citizen should have certain characteristics or certain features? what is the final form of the government, and can elected rulers do whatever they want in democracy, or must democratic government function with some limits? So these are connections, these are questions needs to be answered before mentioning it, before claiming it to be a democratic government. So in the next class we'll discuss about few examples of how we can difference between a democratic and a non-democratic form of government.